Hello and welcome to Green Pass Gaming Sunday podcast. I'm your host Flap, and welcome to the show. Got a great show lined up today. It's been a bit of a Sony week this week, so we're going to be delving into some Sony topics, which is quite good because obviously we're an Xbox-centric podcast, but we do love gaming in general, and it's been a bit of a Sony week, so it's going to be quite nice delving in to see what they're doing and perhaps compare them to where Microsoft are with certain things. But before we get into any of that, let's welcome the panel and the guests. First up, as always, Puxley. How are you?
Yes, good evening, everybody. I'm doing very well, thank you, Flap. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've been playing lots of games this week. Probably we'll do a quick round of who's been playing what. I'm probably not going to remember half of them, but yeah, I've had one of those weeks where I've just been playing loads of games. And as you can probably see here, I've got Hollow Knight playing, and I was relatively new to it. I'd picked it up a few times before, and it was a game that I'd never really paid much attention to because there was always other things going on at the time, but there's no excuse not to play it. And I got a little frustrated with it at first, but once you start learning the mechanics and how the jump works, because it's got a very particular jump to it and things, it all falls into place, and it's actually a great little game. I actually really like it. But so without no further ado, let's move on. Zemi, welcome back to the show. Second time, I believe. How are you?
It is the second time, and thank you so much for having me, man. Yeah, I think I was scheduled to be on once before,
yes,
but then some family stuff came up, and so I had to, take care of that, which is unfortunate. But I am here. I'm here again. Can't wait to jump in. I enjoyed thoroughly the last time I was on your show, and yeah, man, can't wait for these topics.
Fantastic. Now, I've got a horrendous memory, as anyone that knows me on a personal level will attest to. I've got a horrendous memory. But for some reason, when it comes to these podcasts, the way I remember who did what and when is by what videos playing. And I actually remember, I think you was on with the Indie Gamer, and we had Return to the Savage Planet, or Journey to the Savage Planet, actually, playing at the time. And that's been in the news. That's been in the news this week with Google and Stadia. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. Perhaps we'll chat about that a little bit later. But yeah, absolutely love that game. And completing the panel and the guests and the lineup for the show, Luke Steele, welcome to the show yet again. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. And after a few weeks of kind of a lull of news, it seems last week was a lot happened, actually. So it's going to be great to talk about a lot of it.
Yeah, like I say, a lot of it PlayStation focused, but that's absolutely fine. And Luke is 1/4 of our Halo team that we're putting forward for the Halo tournament. Let's just flash that up on the screen. Our first game as Green Pass Gaming is next Saturday at 8 p.m. UK time, which will be 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. And yeah, I think it's the best of 10 games, I believe. I think each host will host 5 games each. I don't know what happens if there's a draw. But yeah, I think we better start limbering up. Well, me and Pucks need to anyway. I don't know about so much. And Scott SX2 is our last player on the team. But we've got an enemy on board. We've got Zemi Games. He's actually playing on Boom's team. So and looking at this, we could actually be playing Zemi and Boom's team perhaps come the semi-finals. So that's if we make it that far, obviously.
I'll be hunting you down. I'll be looking for you on every map.
Don't say that. I'm feeling the pressure as it is. Don't say that. I was saying before the show, I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty this week, and yeah, I've not made the transition from Call of Duty to Halo particularly well, if I'm honest. But well, let's just do a quick round of what we've been playing. Pucks, what have you been up to then? What have you been playing? It was your birthday, actually, wasn't it? Happy birthday for Friday.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Friday was my birthday day, and I got Crash Team Racing for the Xbox, and I also got Super Mario 3D World for the Switch. So I've kind of been jumping between both of those over the last 2-3 days. Say Crash Team Racing, I've already managed to complete the adventure mode. Just kind of been having fun doing kind of the smaller challenges. I forgot how difficult some of the kind of relic and CTR token challenges were, because if for anyone that doesn't know, you kind of obviously do a track once to get the main trophy, but then you have to do them 2 more times at least to then get the relic and a CTR token for all 16 tracks. So it's quite a lot of content there. I don't know if I'll do all of it because I kind of spent loads of time back in the day. It's too many games I want to play as well. So it's definitely a time sink, and I don't know if I have the patience for it now. But I'm definitely also jumping into Mario 3D World. I think I'm already on World 3 of that and absolutely loving that as well. But that's basically been just those two over the last couple of days, really.
Well, we've been playing Battlefield 5 earlier in the week.
Yes, that's true. We did jump in once or twice, but then I was going to join you earlier this week, wasn't I? And then live crashed, I think, worldwide. But you was already logged in, so I don't think it affected you so much.
No,
but...
I was logged into a game playing Battlefield 5 with someone else, and we didn't know anything was wrong until you said you couldn't get in and live was down. But
So I looked up on the website and I saw these little red flags coming up, and then Twitter started exploding as it does. And yeah, that was unfortunate, but it's all back up now. So we'll definitely have to do that again soon.
Excellent. Okay, I really must start playing Halo a little bit more. I can't keep avoiding it, playing Battlefield and Call of Duty. Zemi, what have you been playing this week, my friend? What's been on the roster?
I've played a variety of games, but really like the two most notable, I think, is probably Halo. I've been playing quite a bit of Halo here recently because
multiplayer.
I don't want to procrastinate, for the tournament. What would you say?
Have you been playing Halo multiplayer?
Yes, yeah. I've been doing nothing but Halo multiplayer.
Oh no!
And then I've been playing a lot of Crusader Kings, which I don't know if it's a game that you're familiar with. It's just basically a big grand strategy game, and I've just been playing a lot of that. So really beyond those. Oh, actually, I did play Outriders, but I know that we're going to be talking about that here a little bit later on, so I'll hold my opinions for that. But yeah, I've been just playing around, having a few games of Halo, and playing a lot of Crusader Kings.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, I played the Outriders demo as well, but like you said, perhaps we'll come to that a little bit later.
Yep.
Luke, what's been on your PS5, Xbox, PC?
For me, so actually, because I've been moving this week, it's not been much, but the stuff that I have been playing has actually been on the Switch, just because it's just easier to pick it up. Yeah. So I've been playing Hyrule Warriors, which I actually bought at launch at the Age of Calamity, but I've not played it until now. It just completely got lost in the backlog, didn't even give it a chance, which is quite fun. And also been playing the Super Mario collection, specifically Super Mario Sunshine. And like Zemi, I did and have played quite a bit of the Outriders demo, which we can talk about later. But that's kind of the more recent thing.
Excellent. No, that's pretty cool. Well, what level did you get to, just out of interest, on the Outriders?
I think I'm at level 4 at the moment.
Me too. I'm at level 4. But excellent. Before we move on, let's say hi in the chat. We've got Myseko, Wakanda XNT, Fugly. Welcome to the chat, my friend. Scott SX2, Pixel Slapper, Pong Soul, the regulars, Intech employee. Fantastic to see all of you guys here. Join in. Let us know what you've been playing as well. It'd be great to see what everyone's been up to. So let's kick off. Let's go straight into the topic number 1. So obviously this week, PlayStation heavy news. They announced that the PlayStation 5 will be getting a PSVR sort of version 2, as it were. And I personally think this is a fantastic thing. I've got to be honest, when VR first sort of came around, I was kind of under the impression it might be a bit of a gimmick, a little bit like 3D TVs and stuff, kind of good at the start, but slowly died. But I'm really pleased to see PlayStation have sort of come out with their second iteration of the VR. Luke, you've got a PSVR. What's your opinions of it? Do you play it much?
No, I actually think it's quite good. I don't play it much. The reason being, I don't think because of content or anything like that, but it's a faff. It's quite a faff to set up. It doesn't fit into my setup that well, I wouldn't say. So it's difficult sometimes to kind of get the will to actually, kind of have it installed and have all the wires out there, which I assume is actually one of the, it is confirmed as one of the things that the next PSVR will fix. But yeah, I mean, as an experience, it's great. I've had some really great experiences on there, particularly the Astro platformer, which is phenomenal. The closer we get to wireless, the better, I think, for VR.
Forgive my ignorance. Do you get Half-Life Alyx on it or not?
No, you don't. No, that's only on PC.
So that's Oculus and Vive, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and anything that can run it and has kind of compatible controllers. But it's pretty much everything anything on PC you can play Alex on for the most part.
Okay, no, that's pretty cool. Zemi, what's your take on VR? Do you think it's a gaming platform in its own right that's here to stay, or do you think it's still a bit of a gimmick at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's here to stay or whatever. I think that it has some impressive numbers. But I still think it's niche for sure. And of course, I think that is a big contributing reason why Xbox really isn't really involved in it, right? But I think it's exciting to know that PlayStation is doubling down on it because a lot of their users did purchase it. Yeah. Just some quick research I did from the show. It was stating like in 2019, VR gaming, like the market was valued at $7.7 billion, right? Which isn't a tremendous amount in the grand scheme of gaming. It's a pretty small segment of overall gaming, and it is niche. And there's also a lot of competitors, right? I don't know about the longevity of it. I think a lot of it just ultimately, surrounds how VR can convert people who like playing on monitors or televisions to virtual reality, right? And then also getting the cost down and having more software that makes people want to go out and spend the money to get a VR headset, right? That's one of my biggest problems of why I don't have one is like there's not really anything that is like super persuasive for making me want to go spend $300 plus for a VR headset. And so those are like just some of the challenges I think that virtual reality has. It is very niche. There's not a lot of software out there that I think appeals to a very wide market, especially for the cost of entry. And then of course there's a lot of competitors all vying for this small niche audience.
Yeah, I kind of get that, but and I am surprised that Microsoft aren't there's been no word whatsoever that they're thinking of entering the VR market whatsoever. We did speculate early on, didn't we, Pucks, that perhaps we wondered if Microsoft might actually sort of partner up with someone like Vive or Oculus, Facebook with Oculus, and obviously when there was talk about Valve and Microsoft, there either being a buyout or them sort of schmoozing Gabe Newell, as it were, whether Vive might be on the cards for VR. I'm just a little surprised that Microsoft haven't done it because, in my opinion, I think something like Game Pass would be absolutely fantastic for VR games because obviously you don't have that initial outlay. Obviously, you do of the hardware, but after that, software. Obviously, if it was all part of Game Pass, would actually kind of make sense. I think you might get a lot more people involved. What's your take on VR, Pucks? Do you think Microsoft might actually eventually enter the game?
I've just seen a comment from SX2 actually, who's just mentioned about remembering when the One X was announced and how they mentioned, or Microsoft mentioned back on that kind of release that that console was deemed VR ready in terms of hardware specs. So it sounds like to some degree it seemed like it might have been in the pipeline in the past. But similar to what Zemi was saying though, definitely way back when it was all kind of first announced back, we're talking 2012 to 2014 when it was kind of really starting to roll off and become a thing. It was a lot of excitement around it. I was quite excited for it because it's one of those things where there's always been these kind of VR gimmick toys and all the rest of it, but the technology's never been ready for it, which has been the main issue. And at the time, I thought this would be something that this will finally be VR's moment to shine, and everyone's going to buy into it, and it'll be a great experience. But I think the reality is that that's not been quite the case, mainly due to cost of entry. I think is a big barrier because the technology can't be made cheap enough yet. But that's just a time and technological thing.
But does this not where is this not where the PSVR actually starts becoming very appealing? Because actually, like you say, cost of entry. When you're talking about a PlayStation and the headset itself, I know it's still relatively expensive, but compared to the PC counterparts, it's relatively cheap, isn't it?
That's true. It's a VR ready PC rig. You might be talking $1,000. It might be down to about £800 or so now, but it's still a lot of money compared to a console. I agree, but then I remember when I saw PlayStation VR revealed, it was like, oh wow, a VR experience as part of a console now. That's really cool. And I know a family member of mine has one, and I gave it a go at a Christmas gathering about 3 years ago. And I enjoyed it enough, but for how much that these things are worth, whether it's on PC or the PlayStation VR or otherwise, there's not enough VR content on console, at least from what I've seen, compared to PC. Like, a lot of the VR market, from the little that I have read up on, the big hitters and the must-haves are all on Steam, and a lot of which you can only really play on Valve's Valve's HTC headset, whatever it's called now. So I think it does have its place, but I do think it's still relatively niche, and I think the main barrier is cost. I think if you're paying, as it is now, £450 to £500 or dollars for a console, and then you're being told, you can have this VR headset for an extra $300 or whatever, I think many people are going to pass because there's not enough content to support the cost, if that makes sense. Unless anyone else can correct me on that, but from what I've seen, I don't think there's enough content out there, and I don't know if there's enough consumer buy-in into HR to make it worth developers' time, if that's
to VR. Sense. Well, yeah, I kind of agree, but obviously, if Sony are going out for a second, outing of this particular piece of hardware, they obviously must see something in it, I guess.
Well, I've just been going through the blog post actually as the other guys were speaking, and I mean, I know there's no images or there's no information, but what they have said is that it's now going to be like a single cord setup. Of course, these new systems utilize USB-C, which of course is higher speed. Yeah. USB connection, so obviously a lot of data throughput there. It makes sense. It's obviously easier, definitely ease of use. And they've also now talked about the new VR controller, which is heavily influenced by the DualSense controller. Yeah. So to me, that almost tells me that you're going to get maybe 2 controllers in each hand, almost like the PlayStation Move controllers, but have all of these haptic feedback rumble motors that they've got in the DualSense and all that kind of good stuff. So you're correct there. I mean, it definitely sounds like they're definitely trying to buy into it. I mean, they've even stated on the blog post they've got upcoming games such as After the Fall, Sniper Elite VR, and Humanity, and many more for both PS4 and PS5. So maybe there is a market for it, and maybe I'm just not visible to it.
That would be pretty intense, wouldn't it? Sniper Elite VR. My God.
Apparently that is a thing. I don't know whether that's a new game coming out or if it already exists and is going to get an upgrade, but if it is a brand new thing, that does sound like it'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, it's a new Medal of Honor VR, isn't it? That's just come out. I can't remember what it's called now.
But that's a full multiplayer game as well, isn't it?
Is it?
Like Call of Duty, I believe. Yeah, you actually run around and actually shoot people like a standard FPS. Yeah.
Yeah,
which bizarre. I think throws people off because the biggest problem with VR is a lot of people getting motion sickness. It's one of those things I thought I'd never really be vulnerable to. But then when I played a particular game on a family member's PlayStation VR, it was it was a horror game, but you're on like a car, and the car moves on its own. It's almost like a roller coaster. You have like
on rails, yeah.
It's an on rails thing, but this thing was obviously going up and down, and really high and really fast. And I was just tripping on this thing. I was going to throw up. I had to take it off. It was that bad for me personally. Yeah. And I said I never really got it much before, so it was a bit of a shock to myself that I'm actually quite privy to this, but in the other games it was perfectly fine. So I think there's definitely a lot more technically that's required, rather than just you don't just put 2 camera lenses in front of your player avatar and then say you've made a VR game. I think there's a lot more to it psychologically as well. I remember looking into some of this, and I think one of the things that they say helps is, of course, when you're looking at your own eyeballs, you can technically see the tip of your nose, but your brain cancels that out, but it knows it's there. Okay. But they say that I think one of the things I saw in VR is that a way to stop motion sickness is that you actually put like a black kind of semicircle in the middle bottom of the screen to almost act like the tip of your nose.
Really?
So then your brain ignores it in game. Yeah, apparently this has been done on 1 or 2 games a while back, and apparently it worked really well. A lot less players actually get motion sickness because you're tricking your brain into thinking they can see a nose in the game.
Bizarre.
Which, it does sound bizarre, but apparently that's a thing from what I read a while back. So
I've never heard of that.
So I kind of went a bit off topic there, I think. But
no, that's kind of cool because I know. I'll come back to you if that's all right, Luke. I know Microsoft were they're actually talking about HoloLens and on augmented reality, weren't they? I was hoping that was going to be a thing because they had I think it was a Minecraft thing on a table, wasn't it? You could actually kind of walk around it and look around it. That looked fantastic. But do you think something like Kinect has burnt their fingers slightly with this? Do you think they're a little bit more cautious with the sort of gimmicky side of hardware nowadays?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's 100% one of the reasons why they are, reluctant to really dive into VR. And I think another one actually is just that their priorities for the last few years have been quite different from Sony's, in the sense of, Microsoft are looking to broaden their services, but also on a pure gaming front, actually produce, big first party titles, and you've seen that through acquisitions, etc. And I think Sony, have been there for a number of years, right? They've already had the studio set up, etc. And it's kind of enabled them to branch out a bit quicker into these type of areas, and see what, if there's room for any success there. And I think PSVR has been successful within the niche of the market. Certainly, as in terms of sales, it probably does better than other VR headsets, generally speaking. Not all of them, but some. So I think Microsoft are just taking it very slow, and I think that's probably the correct approach to take, because it's going to be a really, it's hard to ever see a day where VR is the de facto way we play games or anything like that.
It almost can't be, can it? Do you know what I mean? It can't do that, because, like you say, it's a very isolated experience, as you know, obviously. But obviously, that would be the end of couch co-op kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, it's too prohibitive in terms of cost to actually be properly mainstream. And I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where it can be that, because it will always cost a significant amount of money to invest in VR. I think, to be honest, I think Microsoft's approach is really good, and I have no qualms with them doing what they're doing. I think they will at some point get into it.
This is why I thought they would perhaps go with someone else's. So, like you say, if they could get Facebook on board with Oculus or Valve with Vive, that cuts out all of those R&D costs, doesn't it? And they can just sort of plug it into their system. And it's the Series X is kind of very compatible with Windows 10, as we know, for obvious reasons. You'd like to think that they could get it working relatively quickly, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I think it's something they'll probably look at going forward. Personally, I'd like to see Microsoft actually build their own headset, because in terms of hardware, that they build incredible pieces of hardware across consoles, computers, laptops, etc. So I think it'd be really interesting to see what their teams that kind of R&D, the Series X, etc., could actually create, and what price they could offer it for. But I think that's right in that maybe the route forward for them, because it's a niche market, and because are you going to really get your investment back on a lot of this, is to partner with someone else to bring the experience to Xbox, and then kind of branch out from there and just see how it goes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just trying to think of what sort of games I'd like to play, Zem. Perhaps we'll come to you if that's all right. I was just thinking of the Harry Potter game. Would you like to be Harry Potter in first-person VR perspective? That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
No. I most certainly would not.
Quidditch could be a bit weird, I guess.
Yeah. I think there was a Star Wars game that I saw in VR, and it kind of looked cool, but it also kind of didn't. And there was that Medal of Honor game. Once again, with a lot of those games, they just seem way too restrictive to me, right? And that kind of jumps into why I'm just not really interested in VR like a whole lot. I mean, I think that the idea is cool. I think most of us gamers think the idea of virtual reality is cool. It's one of those things. Whenever I was a little kid, playing on my Super Nintendo, thinking, seeing on like movies, people in VR and thinking, oh my God, that's so cool. It'll probably never happen, but it's really awesome. Right. But still to this day, like there isn't that game that really grabs me and makes me want to play it. And I think eventually there will probably be that game. I don't think VR is necessarily going to go the way of the Nintendo Switch per se. But I mean, because there is growth, right? There is substantial, significant growth in VR gaming, like in the market for that, right? I think it's just more of a time. like we're going to have to wait until, the technology becomes more affordable, more people get a hold of it, and more studios start making those amazing experiences that the majority of us consumers want to play and interact with. I think it's really a waiting game. And I think that that's primarily what Xbox is doing, is playing that waiting game, right? They don't have to jump into it right now. They can wait 3 years, 4 years and see where it goes. Wait until it's critically, successful. And a lot of people are getting involved in it, then partner with Oculus or Vive or whoever's making headsets, then implement a software solution like on their platform for it. And there you go. Right. I think that that's ultimately their plan for it. And for me, I'm just not really that interested in a lot of VR games. I really can't even think of any VR experiences that are out on market that I would want to play right now.
Now, that's a very interesting point. And I think from a software and a games point of view, like you were saying, I think the de facto title and the reason for people to play on VR is probably Half-Life Alyx at this moment in time. I don't know if you'd agree or disagree, Luke. That to me seems to be the game to play on it. It is interesting that Star Wars Squadrons is coming to Game Pass. And again, if Microsoft had a VR headset, then that would obviously be coming as part of that, which would be fantastic. But yeah, perhaps you're right. Perhaps, like you say, perhaps they're waiting for that killer app, and perhaps that is something like a spin-off Halo game in VR. I think that would possibly be a big seller, potentially, if they can get the system right and kind of convince people that's the way forward. That's quite an interesting point, actually.
Yeah.
Pux, how are we doing in the chat? Are we all caught up with everything?
Yeah, doing good. I've got some comments I can read out here.
Yeah, go on, go for it.
I've got one here from SX2 who says, I wish Xbox supports WMR, so many games I'm going to miss out on because of it. I really want to play Alyx and games like Beat Saber. And I think Beat Saber is actually a really good candidate for a game is making waves and kind of a big seller for VR. I mean, I was fortunate enough to play Beat Saber about 2 years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It's just a shame you need a VR headset to play it. Another one here from Wakanda Xbox News Today who says, I've only tried the Sony VR when it was new, and the picture was not great in my opinion, but it should have improved by now. And Shizno Elite says, I will always be intrigued by VR tech, but unfortunately every VR I've played makes me feel sick AF, and I think Kinect has made MS skittish for hardware accessories.
Yeah, we kind of mentioned that. Yeah, I agree. I think they do want to put all their eggs in one basket again and sort of, I don't know, they've done some really great work with the Series X and getting it promoted and stuff. I think they just want to focus on that for the time being, and I think that's absolutely the right thing to do. But just out of interest, Luke, I think the PSVR runs at 120 frames a second. Is that correct?
I thought... I mean, it shows how much I've played it recently, but I thought it was 90. I have a feeling it's 90 because 90 is effectively the best, or rather, the minimum baseline FPS you should have for a VR game. Okay. Now, it may do 120 FPS, but I don't know. But I know a number of games do run at 90 FPS on it. So, any lower than that, and it's disgusting to play it, to be honest.
I think the faster the refresh rate for the screens, the less likely you are to feel sick, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And obviously with this new generation of hardware, you'd think that, if they can get 90 frames out of a PS4, then you're probably looking, on very simple games, possibly up to 240 on a PS5, I'm guessing, or certainly beyond 120 perhaps. But interesting. Okay, well, I hope Microsoft do reconsider. And like I say, I was quite intrigued by their AR, but like I say, I do acknowledge that's a completely different platform altogether and a different use of the technology, perhaps. But be interesting to see where it goes. No, I'm really pleased Sony have, like you say, sort of doubled down on that. So sticking with Sony, what did we make of the State of Play? That was Thursday, I believe, about half an hour long. I was a little bit surprised to see it, and we'll come to you, Pux, first, if that's okay. I think they announced it the day before, unless I missed something on Twitter. So it was a very short notice sort of event. I didn't see it live. I sort of caught up with it afterwards, but I was a little bit surprised, actually. There wasn't as much in it as I was expecting. What was your impressions of it?
Yeah, I was of that as well. I mean, I actually caught the very, very end of it about 10:30 at
UK
night
time.
here in the UK. But I did kind of go back and watch it straight after from the beginning, and I enjoyed it. I was expecting a bit more, if I'm perfectly honest. I mean, the only brand new reveal was the game called Sifu, which might be actually really looking forward to that game. And also, it's a title which is coming to PS4 as well. I mean, 'cause I'm in no position to get a PS5 for the foreseeable future, so knowing it's coming to PS4 and I can give it a go is great. And for me, I think that was probably the biggest takeaway, is that how, despite the fact that obviously new generation usually means you're starting to support new hardware, there's still a lot of these games which are heavily being thrown back into the PS4 ecosystem as well. So it's quite nice to know that a lot of people can still play. So I'm quite looking forward to diving into that. Sorry. But yeah, it was quite. Sorry, I was gonna say it was short. I mean, it wasn't. It was half an hour long, which isn't a bad time for like a small. Because the state of plays are kind of similar to the kind of mini Nintendo Directs and that kind of show, because they're about 20 to 30 minutes long as well. But I think I was a little bit disappointed of how long the Final Fantasy section was. A lot of people. This is obviously going to be a very mixed take, but I like Final Fantasy from a top level, but I've not played enough of it to any real detail, any particular game, long enough to kind of say that I'm a big Final Fantasy fan. I know it has a massive following, though, so I understand that they're trying to push the new Final Fantasy VII Remake DLC. But for me, I mean, it was almost like an 8-minute segment of a 30-minute show, whatever it was. So I don't know whether or not it deserved that much airtime, but then again, I'm saying that as someone who's not really a massive fan. And I don't have much kind of like, what do you call it, nostalgia for it. So maybe it's just me. I quite enjoyed that new. I enjoyed Sifu. I think my most impressive take on as well was Kenna and the Bridge of Spirits.
Yep.
That's obviously a game being made by, I think it's 2 old DreamWorks animators or something like that. I think it is. Like, I was really impressed, because I think the last time we saw this, we didn't actually see any real gameplay. It was just kind of that really nice animated cinematic trailer. But it's actually seeing the gameplay footage, and the gameplay itself also looks like it's pulled from an old DreamWorks or Pixar movie. Made me more excited to play it. I'm really looking forward to that game. And again, that's something else that's also coming to PS4. So
And PC.
and PC. You know what? I was surprised about that, because straight after the show, I was on my PC. I just decided to log into the Epic Games Store to see what the new free games of the week were. And yeah, I saw it on there, and I couldn't believe it.
That's exactly how I saw it as well. Actually, I think Sifu coming to PC as well.
That might have gone under my radar, but I have to check. If it is, then that's a good thing.
Yeah. Luke, as a PlayStation 5 owner, anything on there that really took your fancy? Seemed a bit odd to me.
Plenty on there that I'm interested in and that I'll pick up. So Kino looks incredible. Like, absolutely incredible. And it was nice, I think, as Puck said, to get kind of a big look at gameplay, a proper extended look, because it was quite a long trailer. I think it was like 3+ minutes long. So that was really good to have a bit of a blowout in terms of context of when it's been shown before. So that was nice. Returnal looks amazing. I'm all in for that because it's Housemarque. So
when I first saw Returnal, I didn't really think much of it, but the more I see of it, the more I actually really like. I'm looking forward to playing that game as and when I get a PS5. I'm not sure if Returnal's come to PC, but if it's not, then that's probably something I'll get on the PS5 as and when.
Yeah, looks fantastic. Sifu looks really cool, very unique. Personally, I didn't mind the Final Fantasy stuff. I've played it, completed it on PS4, and obviously I played the original version as well. I loved the remake, and the upgrades look quite nice, particularly the 60 FPS boost. So that's quite good, and it's a free upgrade if you have the PS4 version, so that's great.
Yes, they made a few of those comments, didn't they? Specifying that if you've got the PS4 version, you get the free PS5 upgrade. I thought they played that card quite strongly, really, because obviously, on the Xbox platform, I think we're fairly used to getting the free upgrade, whereas Sony is still making a point of it. It seems.
Yeah. So that was nice, and the DLC element of it looks pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, it was a good. it's one of those shows that, in retrospect, I think it looks better than it does when you watch it real time. And I think the reason for that is there's a and it's not just Sony that are doing this at the minute, but Nintendo have also been guilty of it sometimes. Is having lots of these kind of direct style presentations, or having quite a few. And for some of them, they feel a bit like it's just trying to fill time. There are no real big announcements that come out of them in terms of first party. And I think it can get a bit difficult to manage expectations around that. And so, you hear, Sony are having their first, state of play since last year. And then you think, okay, maybe there's going to be some big guns. Maybe we'll see, I don't know, Horizon footage or a new game announcement. And of course, none of that's there because it's all just kind of trying to promote games that are coming in the near future, etc. And I think when I watched that real time, I was kind of disappointed in that sense, because I was like, there's no big announcement here, right? There's no big show closer that you're like, here's our one more thing and it's X. Which is something we're conditioned over the years to kind of expect. So I think it's just, sometimes it's kind of getting used to this way that companies are showing off their games and how their platform holders are using these events now. And the one thing, and I spoke to because I watched it with my partner, and we both said the one thing that will have to happen is, as soon as Microsoft are ready to have a big blowout, Sony absolutely have to step up their game in terms of what they do at these state of plays.
Right. I'm pleased you've said that, and that brings us on to a very salient point that I was going to raise, because I'm thinking, we've just had the state of play. Like I say, I don't remember having anything quite like this in February before. So I just wondered if there was a strategy behind Sony showing that before Microsoft, if they are doing a Bethesda event, that really throws a little bit of shade on Sony with regards to first party titles of things that we've got to look forward to. And I'm just wondering if they kind of got in there early. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think they like to, any of these companies, they like to be the talking point, right? And so I think Sony always would have been keen to have something towards the beginning of the year to get the mind share, keep the mind share going in terms of PS5, etc., and also PS4, which is obviously still selling very well. But I think they would have looked at it and probably gone, well, we're going to be the first out of the gate. Really, Microsoft are probably going to follow us. So they like to, and they both like to do this thing where they kind of bait each other a little bit.
They do, don't they?
Yeah, so they're kind of like, no, you show your big stuff first, and then we'll show our big stuff, and we hope it's a bit bigger than yours.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like that, and it felt like that kind of show from Sony, where they were kind of like, we don't really want to show you all the really big, bangers, because we know Microsoft are going to try and do that soon, so we prefer to come after them, in terms of to take the mind share away. And I think it's just this constant bait and switch in this age of like, both of them trying to do this. So that's how the show felt to me. Not to say it was a bad show, because there was a lot of really good stuff in there, but it was all quite predictable and kind of like, okay, I'm looking forward to that. I've seen this. The one thing I will say is I can't wait for the day that Oddworld launches, because never again will I have to see it at a state of play.
How is that getting so much airtime? No one in the chat, no one on this panel is talking about Oddworld, and yet it seems to get a huge amount of time. And I don't get it.
Yeah, it looked. I mean, I loved Oddworld back in the day, and the new one looks very much like that, but on a bigger scale. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. But it's been shown so many times that it gets to the point where, and you have these at E3 sometimes, or other gaming events, Nintendo Directs, where you have this game that's just repeatedly shown, and it almost becomes a trigger of annoyance for you, because you're just like, well, this is taking up time for some. Like, I'm already like, if they'd shown Ratchet and Clank again, right? I love Ratchet and Clank, but I'm already sold on Ratchet and Clank. I don't need to see anything else. So the saving grace for Oddworld is that it's on PS Plus in April. So that actually kind of got some goodwill back for me for the game, because I'm like, okay, well, it's in my subscription, so fair enough. But yeah, that I'll be happy when that's out, because I don't have to see it ever again. Yeah,
no, I'm of exactly the same opinion. I was never an Oddworld fan in the first place, but to see it so much, it seems odd. But Zemi, anything on there that kind of took your fancy? Anything that you'd be looking forward to particularly?
I'm going to be honest with you. I was going to completely not even watch the show because I really want a PS5. I don't have a PS5 right now, and I was afraid that like I would see something and I'd be like, oh no, I need like, and it would just remind me of like the whole situation with not having a PS5. But I did watch it. The Kina game looks pretty interesting. I really, really enjoy that Disney like Pixar-ish like art style. Seeing more of Deathloop kind of gets me excited for that. And honestly, those are really like the only two titles that really kind of even somewhat remotely got me interested. I would probably be interested in Returnal if I wasn't a big fat coward. But I'm unfortunately that, so I'm not really super excited about that game, but it does look good.
You don't do your horror games, do you?
Yeah, I don't do the scary stuff unless it's co-op, then I'll do it.
Okay.
But
how did you get on with the medium then? Just saying that. How did you find the medium from that?
Oh, I didn't even play. Oh, I did
you didn't?
No,
oh, wow.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Which is a shame because I mean, like the game looks so good, like graphically speaking, but no, never tried it.
It's there's about 2 jump scares from memory. It's not a huge jump scare type game. But, sorry.
What scares you and what scares me are 2 very different things. I mean, I will jump up my own shadow, man. But like bringing it back to the PlayStation show though, like I thought it was a really good first show. Of course, like we always have these expectations. Oh my God, they're going to show, God of War Ragnarok or the next Horizon Zero Dawn or whatever, right? We always have these high expectations, but I mean, really, this show was like an appetizer, right? We know dinner is coming later. Dinner is going to be E3, and we're going to get some really big announcements then. This was just like a small show to kind of help tide us over. It's been a while since really PlayStation has came out with with a state of play like this. And I think that that's really the best way of looking at it is it's just an appetizer. The full menu is going to be coming out hopefully relatively soon with E3.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what Sony are going to bring to the party because, like you say, with the Bethesda acquisition and stuff, Microsoft have upped their game, and I know for a fact Sony are going to up their game, equally, if not better. Who knows? It's going to be very interesting to see how Sony react to that, and I'm really excited for that. It's a great time to be a gamer in general. For me, I thought the winner of the show for me was Deathloop. I liked that from when we first saw it, but it had so many different vibes. It had sort of We Happy Few vibes, sort of James Bond, some of the sort of surreal 60s kind of The Prisoner type thing. It's just, I just loved it. I'm really intrigued by that. And of course, it's I think it's Arcane, isn't it, that are making that?
Yeah. Yep.
Never really been a fan of Dishonored, in all honesty. So I'm guessing it's in a kind of similar vein, but not the same at all. But really excited for that. And I'm guessing at this moment it's a timed exclusive, so it'll be interesting to see as and when that might be coming to the Xbox platform. I wonder if it's something they might announce in the Bethesda event that they have. But all interesting stuff. Pucks, how are we doing with the chat?
Yeah, got a few things saved here. Seeing as you just mentioned Deathloop as well, SX2 says, can we give some credit to the Deathloop trailer? It was awesome. The soundtrack was incredible. Real Bond vibes. Cannot wait for that to eventually come to Xbox.
The art style, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It really got me excited.
Yeah, I agree with that. The one thing though, like when it comes to most game trailers, especially if you kind of know a franchise or even if it's brand new, a lot of the time you kind of get a vibe as to what the main gameplay loop is about. Like things like for Kenna, for example, we've not really seen much of the gameplay apart from a few snippets, but we know it's a bit of like a 3D open platformer type thing, and you've got to save the world in some description, right? But with Deathloop, they always show the whole, whether it's the gameplay or the CGI, you're alive, you try to take out some targets, you die, you try again. So for me, it's like, what's the story here? Like, I'm more intrigued because I don't know what the whole story is about. Like, it's obviously not just trying to kill the bad guys or the enemies before they kill you and you start over again. There's obviously got to be a root story in there somewhere, and that's kind of because I can't tell what that is. That's what's got me most interested in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So we kind of understand the game mechanic, don't we? But like you say, the story side of things, it's an interesting point.
Sorry, bit off there. Another one here from Shizno Elite who says, Sifu is very cool looking. I didn't really get into Absolver, so not sure if I'll get into Sifu. Indie Gamer says, really looking forward to Solar Ash from the Hyper Light Drifter dev.
Yeah.
And yes, I like to look at that one as well. That looked really cool.
Yeah.
Another one here from Shizno Elite who says that I didn't have any expectations for the show. It was a very good show, I thought. People really need to stop over-expecting. Which I think is a very interesting point, because, I probably sound like I was dumping on it earlier, but...
No, me too. And to be honest, we have come off the back of a hugely exciting sort of tail end of last year with, huge announcements and obviously, the Bethesda acquisition and new consoles and all sorts of stuff. And there is obviously going to be a period of normality, I guess, to a certain degree. So, yeah, that's a fair comment.
Yeah, even with, I think the Nintendo Directs are the worst for it, with people over expecting everything. But yeah, no, it's a valid point, I think. And there's a lot of time when you get too much hype for these shows. But yeah, I didn't think it was a bad show for a 30-minute skit overall.
It's better than nothing. I mean, they didn't have to show anything, so it's better than nothing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with that. But that's all the comments so far that I have.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you, chat. We've got a few new faces in the chat. Always good to see there. She's no Elite Invader Game and Dragon Wolf. All welcome to the chat. Thank you for being here, everyone. So we've got some smaller topics to talk about now. And the first of which was the sort of the Halo news that we had dropped. We sort of had a bit of a news download of Halo stuff. Luke, are you more excited than ever to see Halo? Because when I see the gameplay footage, I just want to play it. Particularly, obviously, having played Halo multiplayer quite a lot recently, I'm so excited to sort of see that game come out. I'm just wondering why they showed it so early. Do you think the game might actually release a little bit earlier than everyone's expecting?
No, I don't think it will actually. I think it will launch towards the end of the year. I think they've learned the lesson from showing it last year, and I really don't. I really think they will take as much time as they need, within reason, of course, having already said it's coming out this year, to get it as perfect as it can be. I really want to play it. I mean, the thing was, the display last year, from a gameplay perspective, looked fantastic, I thought, and it looked like it has great game feel and all the things that you typically expect with Halo, and in a kind of new setting, as it were, in terms of more open world or hub world or whatever. But it was just, I remember how disappointed I was at how it looked. I mean, it not in terms of art style, but for a game that has such a large budget, that and for a series that has always pushed visuals, and particularly 343 themselves, when Halo 4 came out, that was an incredible looking title. For it to kind of and combined with the engine, the slipspace engine footage that they'd shown, I think maybe a year or two prior to that game reveal, it was just incredibly disappointing from that perspective. The screenshots that they've released recently look vastly improved.
Yeah, I thought that.
So, and you always have to take those with a pinch of salt, not because they're necessarily, they're not doctored screenshots or anything like that, but I think more that clearly these are screenshots that show the game at its very best, right now, probably. So, how well that quality will hold up over the course of the entire game, I don't know. But they've definitely improved it from the last showing, and it looks a lot closer, at least in stills, to the kind of split space engine footage that they showed a couple of years back. So that's really promising. If they can get that, if they can make it look more like a next-gen title, plus have the gameplay, the same as it was in the demonstration, and have an engaging story, it's going to be an incredible title. But I think they're just being very tepid with it because they know that people are expecting them to have really buckled down and really transformed this game. And I think people have to have their expectations somewhat in check as well about that, because in a year's worth of additional development, it's not going to look like an entirely different game, right?
Oh no,
or anything like that. It's still going to look, similar to what it did last year. However, hopefully improved upon that fairly significantly. So, but I mean, my history with Halo and how important the series is to me, and I can't wait to play it. And it's I just hope that it does release this year and it doesn't get pushed back further. But to be honest, I just want it to be a great game, and if it means I have to wait longer, then so be it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And to be honest, everyone sort of dumped on that gameplay footage that they showed in their showcase, which I kind of get to a certain degree, because obviously it was their flagship title on their flagship machine, and it wasn't as good as the competitors. I think that's probably the biggest beef that some people had. Fair enough, but I got to be honest, even now when I see that gameplay footage, it still looks really exciting, and I'm so stoked to play. I've got to be honest. What game? What sort of controls do you reckon they'll use for the multiplayer aspect? Do you think they'll stick with the Halo 4 type controls, or will they, with the sprint, or do you think they'll go back to a little bit more old school?
I suspect they will go for the Halo 4, Halo 5 approach, i.e. the modern version. Yeah. I think it's too, as much as I love classic Halo, it's very archaic. And if you didn't play it back in the day and you pick it up now, as really you can attest to, it just feels like this completely foreign concept. For myself and probably Zemi and Scott and Pucks, etc., like having played them in the past, it's like you're kind of familiar and you feel good with it.
You've got that sort of muscle memory, like riding a bike.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas if you've never played them and you come to it in a modern age, they don't feel particularly good, I don't think, until you really master them over a number of hours. So, I think it'll be a properly modern control scheme.
Yeah, I hope so, because that's kind of what I'm used to, I guess. But I guess the elitists out there would probably rather it be a little bit more old school, which is fair enough, I guess. But Zemi, what did you make of the info? I was quite surprised to see it this early on, to be honest, because I've got to be honest, I'm really stoked and excited for it. And I've probably got another 10-month wait, I should think, or perhaps not quite that long. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's exciting, and that's one thing that we're kind of getting a lot more from Xbox than what we typically would have in like previous generations under previous leadership and whatnot. is this high level of transparency, right? Like, this is what we're doing, this is where we're at, and I feel like a lot of game studios and a lot of companies just in general don't have that transparency. So that's always great to see. For me, my kind of policy right now is I really am just stopping my expectations for Halo. After watching, there I think it was the May showing where we saw the gameplay and all that different stuff. I'm not super huge on graphics. I mean, of course, I love a pretty picture on my screen. Of course, I enjoy gameplay. I thought the gameplay looked really, really good. My biggest concern is the story, because I'm a very story first gamer. And I wasn't particularly impressed with Halo 5. Halo 4 was good. I don't think it was as good as what Bungie had done previously. So that's really where I am most concerned and most really, I guess, interested in, right? I think it's awesome what they're doing with the graphics, kind of like how... I think Philip said, they're screenshots. You should kind of take them with a, grain of salt. But that's exciting to see. My biggest thing is what are they doing with the story? How, is the missions going to be, structured? Who are, what's the characters I'm going to be playing? And for me, I really won't have an ultimate feel on Halo until I actually finally get it in my hands, right? It's great to talk and speculate and all this different stuff, but for me, I'm all about like give the developers their time. I don't think that they could possibly delay it again. I don't think it's going to come any earlier than this holiday. But just give them the time that they need, and once the game's out, then we'll really all have our opinions about the game.
No, absolutely. I mean, what do you make of the fact that obviously this grapple hook is supposed to change the world in quite a way, or your traversal of the world? I mean, that's obviously something that's historically not happened in a Halo game before. Are you quite excited to have that open world experience in the Halo universe, or like you say, is it more about the story?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more about the story, right? Now, how, I mean, and of course, an open world environment, I mean, that's how we're going to be getting around the map. That's how we're going to really be interacting with the story of the game and the characters in the game and stuff like that. I think that the grapple hook is a unique addition to the game. It's kind of adding in that level of verticality that we've gotten from other first-person shooters in the past. So I'm not going to say that it's super unique. It's a new take on something that we've seen in the past, like with Call of Duty, having the verticality of the boost jump and that type of stuff. I think it's going to be something that's kind of similar to that and giving those types of vibes, which I think is, interesting. I would really be interested to see how that works in multiplayer as well. I think for single player, it's going to work perfectly great. But I'm really interested to see how gamers use that in multiplayer and how, interactions with, within PvP are going to be handled with that new gameplay feature.
Absolutely. And they're going to be able to hide the skulls in some really obscure places as well.
I haven't even thought of that. That is an excellent point, right? Like no more just like tucking it in behind a waterfall. I mean, it's going to be,
because there is a point where you can sort of think, I think there's a skull around here. I'm not supposed to be here, so there's probably a skull around here. But yeah,
no, for sure.
Pucks. Yeah, I mean, how much of a Halo fan would you consider yourself? I mean, are you really excited for him? Is this, is the news of this week really sort of made you excited?
Not any more or less than I was before, if I'm perfectly honest. I mean, I am a Halo fan to the extent that I played it back in the day, like 1, 2, and 3 primarily for the single player at the time, because I didn't have live at the time, especially like on original Xbox. So that was just kind of enjoying the single player and very limited local multiplayer. But Halo 3 was when it kind of really opened up for me in terms of, having Xbox Live, playing the online battles and all the rest of it. That was good fun. But I say, because I didn't have an Xbox One, I've completely missed out on Halo 4 and 5. So I'm a bit out, I'm completely out of the loop of where the story is. And I just haven't really given myself the time to just try and catch up with it yet. I don't know if I will go back and play them fully, if I'm perfectly honest. I'm probably more content just to look at a YouTube video just to catch myself up on what happened in those games. I know there's a lot of mixed thoughts on games now kind of going into this more open world aesthetic. And I agree to some extent, but I think, I don't know, open world for me at least, there are a lot of more recent titles which I've played which have implemented it. It's completely opened up and transformed what the games can be while still feeling like they are that game. Again, I know there's a few mixed feelings to that remark as well, like Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think it's an interesting take on a game that kind of went truly open world and completely transformed what the game was. Majority of people liked it, a small vocal minority didn't like it, and that's fair enough. Similar with like the Super Mario games, and like Assassin's Creed has done it. So I suppose what I hope for in a open world Halo is that it doesn't become a slog to play. Like Assassin's Creed, for example, I absolutely love that franchise, but when it got to kind of the later hours of playing through Valhalla, it did feel like I was just slogging through to finish it rather than wanting to play just because I purely enjoyed it at this point, if you get what I mean.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm just hoping that when it comes to doing missions or quests, whatever they call it, and traversing the world and the map, I just hope that they make it fun to do and in a Halo way as well. Like, 'cause I know Halo's always been very good with its usage of vehicles and the kind of the variety of vehicles that you can get, whether it's like the enemy, like the Covenant-based ones, or the main UNSC type ones. And as you said, mentioned before, but like a grappling hook type mechanic thing, which has been added now. So I'd like to think that there'll be a lot of players that can utilize that, and existing players as well. I think it's quite fun to have you and some friends in the same car or Warthog, and running people over, running into battlefields. I think that's going to be the exciting part. And it's just to add on what you said about the control scheme as well. I mean,
I was going to ask you, what do you think about the control scheme?
I mean, again, as Luke said, having played it back in the day, it doesn't take me long to readjust from modern Call of Duty controls to, playing the Master Chief Collection with the old school controls. But again, as Luke was saying, I agree that I think to try and rope in new players who have never really played Halo before, I think Call of Duty has really set a standard as to what first-person shooter controls mainly are. I know sometimes things like grenade buttons change if it's a different type of game, but the general feel of what button does what is kind of set in stone, I would argue, at this point, or at least for the large majority of gamers. So I think if they just if they alter the control scheme to maybe fit with a more modern play style, then I think that will probably help bring more people in as well. Because I don't think it's easy to have options in your settings menu that says, you can revert back to old school controls or whatever else. But I think there'd be a lot of players who may not even bother to do that if they don't like the way the game feels to play.
Yeah.
So I think to rope in new players, I think it does need to potentially upgrade the controls to fit modern standards, and then possibly have just a toggle in some settings screen somewhere that says, "Oh, if you are an OG Halo fan and you want to have OG controls, here you go," kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That kind of makes sense. And like I say, I think you're right. I think this Halo is for a new generation of players that perhaps aren't fully caught up with the story, and like you say, aren't obviously used to the older style control schemes and stuff. So we'll be interested to see how they address that. Actually,
I suppose because the other thing to add as well is, even in games like Fortnite recently, which are kind of going through this whole like gaming icons skins thing. Like a lot of people probably would have, a lot of younger players or gamers probably would have seen Master Chief for the first time seeing the skin on Fortnite, for example. So
really, is that actually a thing? Do you think?
I think so. Yeah,
I think
to
it's
a degree.
possible.
Yeah,
I think it's definitely possible. Yeah, I mean, because they've recently got a Street Fighter like skins out now.
I've never felt so old.
Well, games like we kind of had this chat briefly before, didn't we? Big games like Fortnite going free to play. A free game is great for parents and kids, right? Because you could jump in, no questions asked in terms of money. But yeah, I think
they start nagging you for the skins and the V-Bucks or whatever the equivalent is.
Yeah, I know. I've seen some joking comments. I think some young kids playing. I think it was like a skit, but kids playing Rocket League for the first time after just playing Fortnite most of his gaming life, and was asking people how he builds in Rocket League. And of course, you don't build; you float around and do ridiculously complicated stunts. I found that quite hilarious. But yeah, sorry, that's my take on the Halo stuff for now.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And like I say, it was great to see an update and just to keep the buzz going. And I got to be honest, like Luke was saying, when I see that gameplay footage, I just want to jump in and play it right now. To hell with the fact that there's pop-in and stuff. I just want to play it now. But that's a good thing, and I'm really pleased Microsoft are kind of doing this. And obviously, 343, just kind of trickle feeding and keeping the hype alive, reminding people this game still exists, it's on track and stuff. That's fantastic. Where are we with the comments, Pucks?
I'm pretty caught up, actually. The one I do have saved here is from Scott SX2, who says that I think the reaction to the original gameplay reveal was far too harsh. I thought it looked good, but agree that it does look better. I cannot wait for Infinite. I've just ordered some books to catch up.
I think the problem that I probably had personally, and possibly lots of others, is just that it was the flagship game on the flagship system, and I think you'd probably expect flagship kind of visuals, I suppose. And I don't think anyone would argue that it kind of met that to a certain degree. But as lots of people have pointed out, expectations were probably wrong. But I would also probably push that back, and I think Microsoft probably overhyped a little bit. I don't know. It's an interesting point, isn't it? I
think it is interesting because this seems to be a more common. It's not too common yet, but it's becoming more common. I think from what I've seen, that developers they are listening to player feedback, and they will delay a game if there is significant kind of recall or discourse against what they've seen. I know. I'm not going to go too into this because it's a bit of a minefield, but I know there is a degree, I think, of gamers don't really know what they want until they see it or shown what shown what a game is. And I think, but such a beloved and long-lasting IP such as Halo, I think Microsoft probably saw all of the feedback and thought, this game needs to be top, like it has to be good. It can't be anything but almost perfect, in their own new way. So I think it's a good thing they've done. And just to quickly go on about, because I know the other guys mentioned about potential release dates, and I think even if behind closed doors the game is, even if the game was really like now, for example, I still think that it'd be in Microsoft's best interest to hold off until the holiday period, because I think.
Doesn't that depend on Starfield?
I don't think so.
No.
You
think they might launch two of those big games in relative close succession?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, and the reason I say that is because I think that like the target audience are very, very different. I'm not saying that people that play RPGs don't also play first-person shooters, but I think that the audience is wide enough that they could they could pass with that. And then also there's the symbolic kind of approach of this year we're upcoming Halo's 20th anniversary, right? Symbolically, how amazing would that be to release this new Halo, which is a spiritual successor, and it's kind of taken a lot of things out of the book of Combat Evolved, right? On the actual day, like the 20th anniversary of Combat Evolved, launching. Yeah.
That's a pretty cool thing, and I agree. And to be honest, what a great problem for Microsoft to have to sort of, because they are going to have some bangers kind of releasing at a similar sort of time, having to pace themselves with some of these things. It's a great situation for them to be in. But it's a very interesting point that they, like you said, they could actually launch them in relative close succession because, like you said, they're actually targeting slightly different audiences.
Well, and another thing though too is it's not like they're competing for game sales, right? Like in years past, their games would be competing for their, from their other games and, for money, right? For just, cash sales of $60 a pop, whereas everything's going to be going in Game Pass. So even if you're releasing all these titles around the same time, they're still going to be in Game Pass once you're done with Halo or once you're done with Starfield, and you'll be able to jump in.
Absolutely. Pucks, are we caught up with the chat?
Yeah, it's caught up so far.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone in the chat for being here. We did mention it earlier. We've got 22 people watching at the moment. Green Pass Gaming and a lot of your favorite podcasts are all competing in a Halo multiplayer tournament. And as you can see, we are in the bottom left. We play our first game next Saturday at 8 p.m. UK time. That will be 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific. We're playing XBL Party Podcast. I think it's the best of 10 games. We host 5 games each, and we actually work our way through up until a champ. I think each round is played on a different week, so it's not all happening on the same day, I don't believe. But we've got some fantastic podcasts in there. To be honest, if nothing else, it's great just to see all of the podcasts in there. And if there's anyone on that list that you guys haven't checked out, I strongly recommend that you do. But I'm getting really excited and nervous in equal measures for this because I'm not fantastic at multiplayer Halo, so I hope I don't let the team down. I think it's fair to say, Pucks, that Luke and Scott are probably our strong cards.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And me and yourself will bring up the rear. That's fine.
Yeah, I'll try.
We need people marching at the back. We'll take the back part. But it's going to be live streamed on Discord. We will send a link out, so it will be on. Oh, I can't remember whose Discord it's going to be on. I don't think it's going to be on our Discord. We're going to stream it to Discord so people can watch live. That's cool. We'll send out all of the links and everything and in plenty of time, and we'll obviously keep your eye on Twitter for all of that. But that's fantastic. And like I say, Zemi, we've got a competitor in our midst because he's playing with Mr. Boomstick XL, which, as you will see, is fourth down on the left. And well, if all of the cards stack and fall correctly, we might be seeing Mr. Boom in the semi-finals or semi-finals, I guess, if you're stateside.
Yeah. No, for sure.
No, it's fantastic. Well, I'm quite excited for all of this. Just got to get some practice in, boys.
So we've got Dragon Wolf in the chat as well, who's just said, "I'm in this. It looks like we're up against GBTB. Should be fun."
Oh, who you with, Dragon Wolf? Sorry, let me just pull that back up.
Well, if he's against GBTB, that would be with midweek.
So you're with Wandering Dutch. Excellent. Yeah.
Give me a lot of fun.
If I was going to say, if we're successful in our first round, we'll be potentially seeing Wandering Dutch on the next one. But it's really good fun. It's fantastic fun. I'm really I just wished it was Call of Duty we're playing, but obviously, you know what? This is such a strong card of Game Pass, isn't it? Because if you've got Game Pass, you've got this game. We can all play it. It's fantastic. So. Brilliant. Let's get rid of that. So where are we on the topics? Let's have a look. What else happened this week? Oh, let's have a chat about the Outriders demo. We'll start with you if that's all right, Zemi, because we had a bit of a chat before.
Yes.
What did you make of it?
I loved it, man. Like going in, I did not know if I was going to enjoy the game. I wasn't even sure about purchasing the game, right? Like I'm going to be honest with you. If they did not release a demo, I quite possibly would have probably never bought the game and I just wouldn't have been interested, right? Because I'm not really a super, super big fan of looter shooters, but Outriders really impressed me. The story of the game, and I've already kind of, showed my cards, right? I'm a huge story fan. Yeah. The story is absolutely just amazing, right? The cutscenes are really, really good. I don't think I've felt more like close to a customly made character that I've made in a game than quite possibly Outriders. I cool. Really love the voice acting, the narrative, the writing I think is fantastic. There's some funny parts. There's some some serious parts. The gameplay is good. It's not the best that it could ever possibly be, I don't think. It's very Mass Effect-y. I kind of feel like I got those vibes off of it. And then also, just like the universe and the setting is also kind of Mass Effect-y. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I got to level 7. I've gotten quite a bit of loot. I'm probably going to jump back into it before the demo ends, if it ever ends, or before the actual game launches on April 1st, I think. And it's a shame that I'll have to wait until I'll have to wait until April 1st to actually be able to purchase the game and play it. But no, I really enjoyed the game. If you're always going to be able to find things to complain about, and my thing to complain about is like and this is me being super selfish, by the way. I really wish that this game would have been a single player game, because I love what they did with the story. I love what they're doing with the characters. And don't get me wrong, I don't hate multiplayer, but I think that, the time that they spent creating multiplayer, creating the servers, figuring out, how all of that, different stuff works, I think would have been better spent towards just crafting an amazing single player narrative game that honestly, I think could rival Mass Effect. And I'm a huge Mass Effect fan.
Yeah, I know what you mean about the Mass Effect vibes. When I first started playing it felt a little clunky at first. Obviously, takes a little bit of there's a bit of a bedding in period, isn't there? It's sort of like, hang on, there's invisible walls everywhere. I can't just traverse. I can't jump on rocks and stuff. That was a little bit jarring at first. But once you get past that sort of opening scene bit, it sort of starts to open up a little bit more. And I actually started really enjoying the gunplay. The guns feel real crunchy, and when you land those headshots, you can kind of feel it. And I was getting overwhelmed quite a lot on some of the scenes. There's quite a lot of enemies running towards you. You think, blimey. So when you start opening up your sort of special abilities, it all starts making a bit more sense.
And that's an interesting approach that they took, right? Like there's no health packs or anything like that. To heal, you need to kill, right? And so, using your abilities and all that different stuff and being right up in the, enemy's face, just murdering enemies, that's actually the way that you heal, which I thought was a really, really unique approach in a third person shooter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Luke, what did you make of it?
I just actually seen in the chat, Scott put his thoughts down, and SX2, and actually it's exactly the same as his. So I thought from a gameplay perspective, I really enjoyed it. And I think it has. So for me, my expectations coming into it, or at least what I wanted the game to be, was a good loot game. And I think it is a good loot game. I think the loot is interesting, and it seems to reward you well, even from an early stage. And the gunplay is very enjoyable, as you said. I think the weapon sounds are a little weird sometimes. Like I think they could improve the game by changing those. That's a weird comment, but it's actually something that does affect how gunplay feels, even though it's not.
It's a visceral thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think. That would be nice. I don't think they will change. But the bits about the game I really don't like are actually the voice acting. And story is okay from what I've played. I'm only level 4, so I've not played the full. Yeah, I know quite substantial, so it may change. It's all very derivative. It's not particularly interesting. Not to say that it's bad, because it's not bad. It's just not. It doesn't grip me, and with these types of games, very rarely does the story grip me, right? Because this isn't like Mass Effect or anything like that. This is its own thing, and it's not. I don't think the narrative is really the predominant focus of this game. Anyway, it's more of a Destiny type game, but I'd say probably more orientated towards single players than not. So. But it surprised me, because I didn't have very high expectations for it in terms of how it would play, and I actually really enjoyed it. And it's one of those games, I know it's a game that I like, because it's one of those games where I'm like, oh, maybe I could just fit in kind of 10 minutes and see what loot I can get, and run through an area. And oddly enough, it reminds me in a weird way of a game like Diablo, which is a completely different style of game in terms of it's isometric, etc. But it's this kind of Diablo's very much the same, where it has these kind of areas and it funnels you into them, and it's like, here's loads of enemies and kill them, get some loot, and then we're going to tell you a little bit about the story, and then you right on to the next area. So it's kind of linear in that way, but it's all about kind of player progression and empowering you as a player to get stronger, to get more loot, to get better abilities as you go along. And I really like that style of game. It's really different. It doesn't feel like Destiny to me at all. That game, it doesn't have that feeling. So I've got mixed thoughts on it. I think in the course of the main game, the story may be fantastic and the voice acting may be different. There may be characters that are more interesting, but none of that grabbed me for the demo. It's purely from a gameplay perspective that I really enjoyed it. One other thing I'd also say, however, I know it's a demo, but the performance is really, really bad. It's really inconsistent. So
funny you should say that. I had this conversation with Zemi. Did you find that the cut scenes were running at 30 frames a second, which was quite jarring compared to the gameplay?
I don't know what the frame rate of the cutscenes were. It looked perfectly fine to me. I thought that the cutscenes were just absolutely amazing. I didn't find anything really that jarring at all. I mean, I had a few like network issues while trying to play online with one of our writers for the site I do. But no, I didn't really find a whole lot of performance issues.
Okay, that's interesting. But did you notice that, Luke?
Yeah, so the cutscenes are 30 on consoles. I think they've come out and said that at least for PC, they'll be unlocked. So you'll be able to have 60 FPS cutscenes. I don't know. You would presume that they would do that for console as well, because at least the Series X and PS5, because the target frame rate in game is clearly 60 FPS, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I didn't see any performance issues. It was really silky smooth for me.
No, I was playing on Series X, I should add as well, and I had consistent, like very noticeable drops in a lot of areas. So perhaps it's it's a demo, right? It's it's essentially a beta, so it's not gonna be indicative of final game performance in any case. But I did notice that it was a bit up and down, and apparently I've not tried it yet, but I will try it and see if this is the case. But apparently the PC version is also really really poor in terms of performance. Like people are struggling to get kind of 1080p 60 FPS even with like higher end rigs. So obviously clearly it's got a lot of work to do before it launches, but I'll probably pick it up because I really do enjoy the demo quite a lot. So
yeah, I enjoyed the gunplay. I really found that, like I say, crunchy. You really felt like those shots were landing. I quite enjoyed them. Pucks, is it something that's on your radar? Have you downloaded it?
If I'm honest, this is something which I don't think I can add much to, if I'm perfectly
no, that's fair enough.
So I remember when we had a chat about this when we saw a trailer, I think, late last year, one of the shows. I think I mentioned that I saw the original trailer. It didn't really grab me at the time. And, big announcement this week that was an Outriders demo out. I know a load of people have jumped on this. But for me, again, based on what I thought back then on the original trailer, this is something that hasn't been on my radar at all. But over the last day or two, I've looked at a few images and videos and stuff online, and I mean, regardless of despite what you were saying about performance and stuff, a lot of people were saying that they really enjoyed it, and I've seen in the chat as well people comparing it to the Division, Gears of War, and Mass Effect. So, or almost like a combination of all of those. It's
definitely got Gears of War vibes in the fact that you can't jump, or kind of the kind of cover that you take feels like you kind of stick to it, and then you can kind of press A or B to sort of roll to the next piece of cover or whatever.
Right, fair enough. So, I mean, there's a free demo, right? So I'll, given what everyone's been saying about it and what you guys here in the chat have been saying, there's no reason for me to not give it a go. I'll probably download it on my Xbox straight after this show. But as of right now, it's not something that I really care about, if I'm perfectly honest. But I may change my mind completely, once I give it a go. But as of right now, it hasn't been on my radar at all, and I don't really know an awful lot about it, if I'm perfectly honest.
No, that's fair enough. And it's, like you say, it's quite nice. It's in a demo, so you can go and check it out. Where are we with the chat? Are we up to speed with the chat?
Yeah, I've got a few more things regarding Outriders. So Shizdo Elite here says, I'm really digging Outriders demo. Second most anticipated game. Can't wait for April Fool's Day. SX2, I know Luke touched on this a minute ago, but I'll read it out in full. So SX2 said, I really enjoyed my time with the demo, but really have the opposite feeling towards the game. Loved the gameplay, didn't like the VA/writing, and just skipped it all.
Okay.
Voice acting, Pixel Slapper here also says, Outriders needs a jump button. Don't get me started on crouch. Can you comment on that? Because I haven't got a clue.
Well, like I say, it doesn't have a jump. It's kind of Gears of War mechanics.
What about the crouch thing? Is that the same thing then?
Is there a crouch? I don't think there is a crouch, or is there? I can't remember. I know when you go up to cover, you kind of automatically crouch.
Yeah, I did not see it. I did not experience a crouch. I mean, yeah, like if you're going up to like like waist high cover, like your character will crouch down behind the cover, but like there's not like just like stealth mechanics or anything. I don't know, like crouching, sneaking, or anything like that.
No, fair enough. Well,
that's the chat so far.
Okay, no, that's cool. I don't think there's much more to say on the Outriders demo, to be honest. I know a lot of people were kind of excited for it, and let's see what the main game comes out. I've got a very innocent question that I feel I should know the answer to. Do you have April Fool's Day in the States?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yep.
I'm not really sure the origins of April Fool's Day, but I didn't know if it was a stateside thing as well. Okay, because it comes out on April the 1st over here. I don't know if it does in the States. I'm guessing
it does as well. Yeah, I don't know the origins of it. Like for some reason, I'm wanting to think like there's probably some Greek god or something, and like it's some holiday that dates back years. I don't know. I really have no idea what the origins of April Fool's is.
No, okay, that's a bit of a strange one to have on a gaming podcast, but there we go. We cover many topics. Anyone else seen this?
Yes, this is the crazy taxi clone. Taxi Chaos, is it?
Taxi Chaos. Is anyone else frustrated that someone else is having to make Sega's games for them? I want Sega to make, the natural successor to Crazy Taxi. Why is someone else having to make Sega's games? They've got so many great franchises, particularly from the arcade era. And I know we as gamers have evolved on from the arcade era, but if this is a sort of a 10, 15-minute pickup game that you can kind of, I don't know, just play for the achievements, if nothing else. I love these sort of games. I'm just frustrated with Sega that someone else has had to make this fun, but it does look good, doesn't it?
Graphically, I think it looks really cool. I did read something quite interesting about this earlier this week, actually, because I think on a lot of the games kind of marketing or publishing adverts or whatever, I think they've stated that for the Asia regions, that Sega were going to be assisting with publishing. But then I think Sega then actually messaged a number of outlets to say that they are in no way involved at all with this game and that they're investigating it further. So it's almost like, have these devs potentially shot themselves in the foot by maybe false claiming that Sega were involved and they're not? I don't know. I don't want to make a story out of it because I don't know what's true and what isn't. But I definitely found it interesting regarding this game.
It's interesting, isn't it? What's your take on it, Luke? We're a bit frustrated that that Sega aren't making these sort of games themselves, like Jet Grand Radio and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, particularly with Crazy Taxi, because it's like it's not I can't imagine it's an expensive game to make, right? No, exactly. I can't imagine it would be a huge development budget at all. You could quite easily develop it in-house or outsource a license. And if the last few years have shown us anything, it's if you do a remake or a reboot or even a remaster of kind of nostalgic properties like Crash Bandicoot, etc., they tend to do really well. So I don't know why they haven't done this for something like Crazy Taxi, which is extremely memorable. Get other games like Jet Set Radio, I get, because they were. I love Jet Set Radio, and there's a number of spiritual successors coming out of that, not made by Sega, but it was a very niche title, and it's a kind of a title that's even harder to sell now. But stuff like that, it's a bit weird. I think Sega's general approach to what they're developing, over the last few years has been a bit odd, to be honest. I don't really understand it, considering the vast IP that they have.
Yeah, exactly. Where's the new Daytona? Where's all the driving games? Where's the Daytonas, Sega rallies, and things like that? And even things like House of the Dead. I know that probably wouldn't translate particularly well. Probably a good VR game, actually, thinking about it. But where are they in that sort of field? Perhaps they feel they've moved on and they've kind of grown up a little bit from the arcade style games. Yeah. But a bit frustrating. But there you go. Right, let's talk about Luna. Now, I don't know if this is a bit of a stretch. I think Boom covered this actually Zemi. I don't know if he was on that particular show, but
Yeah, I think it was like his Friday show, and I was not.
Yeah.
On there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Mark Whitten leaves his role as Amazon Luna boss. Just wondering, is he leaving a potentially sinking ship? Do you think? What do we think the future of Luna is now that Stadia's on real rocky ground?
Is that question for me?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. No. Yeah, I mean, so I think that a lot of the times, like, we see, these heads of companies leaving, or just certain individuals at companies leaving, and we just start thinking like the doom and gloom, like the sky's falling, Stadia is a disaster. I'm sorry, Luna is a disaster. It's never going to come out, or whatever, right? And I think that, in some ways, sure, it makes sense. I don't know if this is necessarily one of those times. He might have possibly just, not been happy at his work for, other reasons other than Luna is just a disaster and it's going to burn. So I don't think that that's a great indication that Luna isn't going to be successful or anything like that. I think that, Luna has a lot of promise in the gaming industry. Amazon has a lot of experience with services like this. Of course, they have Audible underneath their belt. They have Prime Video. They've produced original content for their services. And so they really do have a good understanding of how like the services market works. Of course, they're not super into, video games. This is, kind of something that's relatively new to them. But I think that there is a lot of promise here. I think that, especially if they can get the Amazon Luna application on Fire Sticks that's already in millions of households right now, that's going to help them even further. And then, of course, I think that they own. Do they own Twitch or Twitter?
Yeah, Twitch. Yeah.
Twitch, right? And having that streaming platform allows you to put advertisements on that streaming platform and potentially raise up public knowledge of your service, right? So I think that there's a lot of really good things that kind of go towards Luna that a lot of people really don't think about, and so I'm not really super inclined to think that the head of Luna leaving is necessarily indicative of Luna is going to be a failure and he's jumping ship before the disaster happens, right? I that could be a potential possibility, but it could also be that maybe he had family issues arise, like we recently saw with the initiatives, I think creative director or whatever his title was. There's a lot of things that could contribute to somebody leaving. Maybe it's something similar to that. Maybe it's, something completely unrelated. Then again, it could be that he is jumping ship, but there's not really, any evidence other than him leaving that points to that. And I think that there is, I think that Amazon has a lot going for it as to why Luna would potentially be successful in the gaming market.
Yeah, and to be honest, it was a bit of a wild speculation on lots of people's parts, to be honest. And
Sure.
yeah, but I think perhaps in the context of Stadia and what's happened there, I think that's probably got people asking those questions. But like you say, it's completely unrelated, and like you say, possibly nothing to do with it whatsoever. But yeah, sorry, Indie Gamers just mentioned that for some reason my stream seems to have dropped the bitrate quality down to sort of stupid levels. Everything's really blurry and blocky, and it doesn't seem to have recovered. That's me downloading Taxi Chaos in the background and try and get it on the screen for you. That's what it's done, unfortunately, and it doesn't seem to be recovering on its own. So apologies that the gameplay footage is all a bit blurry now. That's most frustrating. Let me just quickly pause it, see if that makes any difference. I'm guessing it doesn't. Yeah, no, fair enough. Did you have you actually tried Luna at all? Because obviously we don't have it this side.
No, I haven't. I want to. I signed up for the beta. They just don't love me.
Oh, okay. So it was an invite only thing, was it?
I think you had to register and then they approved you. But I registered and they never approved me, or I never got the email, or I never saw the email. But it is definitely something that I'm very interested in trying out, whenever it does release or whenever they open it up to more people. because I'm really, really interested in seeing what Amazon can do. I use pretty much almost like all of their services. I think I have, of course, Prime for shopping and for, video. I have the Fire Stick. I have Audible that I listen to, Amazon Music on my Alexa, which I have as well. I'm a really big Amazon fan. And so I'm really excited to see what they can do, especially in gaming. And I'm also a huge proponent of, adding in even more competition into the industry is going to be a great thing for gamers and consumers like you and me going forward, right? It's not going to hurt anything.
No, absolutely. Like you say, if they can incorporate into Prime, which lots of people already sort of buy into, then that could be a bit of a concern perhaps for Microsoft, for something to look at. But Luke, come to you. This is kind of the last topic, really. There was some news, and I don't know if it's been updated since it came about, but it's there was a lawsuit against Bethesda. And people were sort of wondering whether that may slow down the final acquisition. And seeing as it's kind of your line of work, what's your take on that?
I saw this, and I think the original lawsuit was actually set up in July 2019, but it's only kind of just making its way to the kind of the really the pivotal stages. From what I've seen, I don't think it'll slow anything up at all, to be honest. I would imagine, given the content of it in terms of what Bethesda have potentially done under US law, as well as the impending takeover from Microsoft, that it'll be settled quite quickly. And it'll just settle out of court because there's no need to drag it on. It's a really interesting one, actually, and I won't go into the details of kind of what it is and why it's interesting. But it's one of those that shows the pitfalls of not really advertising your season passes correctly and how they're supposed to work. So it is actually one of the rare ones where you look at it and you go, well, this isn't just a kind of opportunistic lawsuit from people looking to get a few quid in their pocket. It's actually a legitimate complaint about, what actual rights of downloadable content do I have if I'm a season pass holder? So that's all very interesting. But in terms of, do I think it will affect the Microsoft takeover? Absolutely not. It'll be settled. And also Microsoft will have known about this. The lawsuit in 2019, anything like this is disclosed as part of an M&A process. So they will have 100%.
Fallout 76 is an absolute ball and chain for them, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it is. It's been a mess all round for Bethesda, that game.
Do you remember Todd being on the stage first announcing? I was thinking, oh wow, kind of an Elder Scrolls Online version of Fallout. Fantastic! How can it go wrong?
I remember it, but I actually had really bad kind of permutations as I was watching it because it just didn't. I mean, nobody's playing Fallout to have it be a multiplayer experience where you have essentially no impact on the story and you have no, at least when it came out, no human NPCs. Like it's just totally, it's like Bethesda trying to create an audience for a Fallout game where it just didn't exist and where it was never going to exist. And I get the rationale because maybe they looked at Elder Scrolls and were like,
I was going to say, could you not argue the same for Elder Scrolls? I mean, that kind of works, doesn't it?
I think it kind of works, and it's successful enough for Bethesda as it is, but it's not a hugely successful MMO by any means. Like there are a lot bigger MMOs that have been a lot more successful, and it's taken a long time.
They're supporting it quite heavily. I mean, there's been lots of DLC for it, hasn't there?
Yeah, there has. And look, I mean, to be fair to them, they've done quite well out of it because it looked like a couple of years ago that game was going to die pretty quickly and it was going to be taken off. But they kept supporting it, and it got an audience, and it kind of dragged that audience to it in the same way that Final Fantasy XIV did in terms of when it was rebooted, and kind of redone from the ground up almost, in that it does a lot more of the things you would expect from an Elder Scrolls game, even though it's an MMO, right? And it's still not an Elder Scrolls game, but it's closer. Fallout 76 is basically, or when it launched at least, it was basically more like a survival kind of crafting Rust type game, but with a kind of more single player focus ish, even though it's not a single player game. And it just never looked like it was going to work. And I'm surprised it's still going, but clearly it does enough for them to justify it. But it's been a mess, and this lawsuit exemplifies it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to be honest, as you know, Microsoft will have known about this, and I'm sure they would have done a risk assessment as part of the finances to sort of, do we want to take on this risk? And if this lawsuit is successful, do we want to pick up the bill potentially? I'm guessing that's how it works.
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially it. They would have looked at it and gone. I mean, companies of Bethesda's size, particularly in the market they're in, they're exposed to all kinds of lawsuits all the time, all kind of potential for lawsuits. Doesn't mean that they're doing anything particularly wrong. It just means that, this is the kind of world that we live in. And Microsoft would have taken one look at that and gone, well, if it comes to it, we'll just settle it because, it's easy to do that and you can get rid of it.
Yeah, no, I can't believe. We were talking beforehand, actually, Zemi, about how much you like Elder Scrolls, and Oblivion is your number one favorite, which I completely wholeheartedly agree with. But what's your take on Elder Scrolls Online, just out of interest?
Elder Scrolls Online, I like it. Whenever it first came out, it definitely had its problems. I first played it on PS4, and then I eventually played it on Xbox, and then I eventually played it on PC. So I've played it on, I think, all the platforms that it's on. And throughout the years, it has gotten a lot better as time went on. And it's definitely one of those examples of a game coming out and, having a somewhat rocky launch. I wouldn't say that the game was absolutely terrible whenever it launched. There was just a lot of things that could have been improved. And with time, Bethesda, Bethesda didn't do that. ZeniMax Online Studios did that. And the game is better now. However, from the start of Fallout 76, I thought it was going to be just an absolute disaster because, what they were trying to do is make like a core Fallout game, but make it, massive multiplayer. And one of the things that makes Fallout so good is the detail and the stories and the choices that you get to experience by yourself in this creepy wasteland, right? And, to make the game multiplayer, obviously you're going to be taking time of development and resources away from making a lot of really interesting characters and for that reason, I wasn't shocked whenever I saw that it was not the Fallout game that everybody kind of wanted. I thought it was a mistake leading up, and that's why I honestly never purchased it. Whereas ESO is more of an MMO. I think if Fallout 76 would have taken more of the ESO approach and been an actual MMO game, I think it would have seen a lot more success than what it did. But also, if I'm not mistaken, this lawsuit that Bethesda is currently facing isn't even for Fallout 76. It's actually for Fallout 4 with the season pass, right? Like they're like the people, like the plaintiffs, I think is the correct word. They're basically stating that whenever Bethesda or ZeniMax released the marketing and advertising for the season pass of Fallout 4, they stated that for $30 you would get all of the downloadable content. Well, eventually what Bethesda did for Elder Scrolls Skyrim and Fallout 4 was release the creator studio or something. What was it called? It was like a modding thing where people who made mods could then give those mods to Bethesda and monetize them on the platform. And basically people that bought the season pass, of course, had to pay for those mods. That wasn't included in the DLC. And that's basically what the plaintiffs are saying, is that they feel that they were entitled to all of those free mods because they bought the season pass, and Bethesda said that all downloadable content would be included in that season pass, right? Which for me personally, I don't think is very legitimate. Is what they're doing legal to sue Bethesda? Sure. Is it ethical? I don't really think so. But it is what it is. I feel the same way as Luke. I think that that this, like all of the other class action lawsuits that Bethesda, or whatever that Bethesda has seen, and it's been quite a few. I think it's going to be taken care of in court there, or it's going to be taken care of out of court. They're going to just pay these people a small portion of what they're ultimately wanting, and we're going to go on with their days like nothing else.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Or one of the other comments was just give them everything that they've asked for as part of the season pass. But I've got to be honest, I thought it was a Fallout 76 thing, so I've learned that today.
There was another lawsuit for Fallout 76 regarding the bag that people who bought the collector's edition. Yeah, and I think there was also another one about the people's information being leaked after Bethesda tried to fix the whole bag situation, but then their database got hacked and people's information got leaked.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? It really is a shame because, like you said, up until that point, I mean, I love Fallout. I love all of the Fallouts, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it was a shame to see that. Pucks, you ever played Fallout 76 or ESOL? I know we've got Fugly in the chat. Apparently, he's been lost in the Elder Scrolls Online world for a long time, and people have struggled to find him in the real world.
Yeah, he's been missing from everywhere, I think, for the last couple of weeks. Yeah. But no, I haven't. But is there really much more I can really add? There's been very extensive chat with the other guys here, but I think the only things I can really add is, I did watch I do remember the presentation with Todd Howard on stage announcing it for the first time. And again, as you say, very much like yourself and the rest of these guys, I love Fallout. I absolutely love the universe and the games and the style. And equally, I love Elder Scrolls and the gameplay there. And again, that's got its own kind of story and feel. And I love both of those franchises. So when I saw the MMO version, I thought this is very exciting. Because I know when it came to Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, there was a lot of user-made mods for, like 4-player co-op or the rest of it that, that have been user-made and well liked within the modding community at those times. It was just like, Fallout 76 after ESO should be a really good fall off. It's like Elder Scrolls, but it's Fallout kind of thing. And then I remember reading, when he was on the stage, I think Todd Howard was even back then was mentioning about how there wouldn't be any NPCs and that they wanted the players to almost create the whole economy themselves, which I think it's very make or break because. Well, I say make or break. It's very much break, I reckon, because I think a lot of the games where players build an economy, like EVE Online, for example, I think is a good example. Like the players have almost taken it upon themselves to start that, and then the developers have kind of built on that and then made it a thing, if that makes sense, to the point where it almost then feels like the whole economy was part of the whole game to begin with, when actually it was probably more player-driven to start, and then it was developed on formally and then released later on. I think Bethesda probably trying to jump on that ship, but to try and do it from the very beginning was a very risky move to start with. But I think the other main kind of issue, at least at launch, I think the server capacity I think the player count per server was only 50 to 80 players, I believe, at launch at the time. It wasn't many, and I think the map was actually quite extensive even back at launch. So I think it was a case of players were trying to play the game and trying to find other players, but they couldn't see them because there wasn't that many people in the servers, and the map was so large that you wouldn't even encounter them anyway. So I think it kind of had these kind of teething issues to begin with, but, like a lot of things in the modern day now, you read a few things online or read some reviews or see some YouTube videos, and a lot of people would instinctively and immediately just give it a pass, won't even give it a chance to try it themselves. So I feel like maybe the game's had its moment before it even begun.
Yeah, I think Microsoft are going to try and move away from it, to be honest. I think
because there was the other thing as well with the season pass, I think it was, what was it? There was a subscription service later on for Fallout 76, wasn't there? Like a monthly fee to get some extra stuff every month in the game, but then people were saying the monthly cost, was it like $40 a month or something stupid to start with? I remember it being ludicrously expensive for what
$100 a year or something, wasn't it?
It was something crazy. It was just like, who's going to pay that? I know people back in the day paid that kind of money for World of Warcraft and stuff, but it's been a number of years since then. If you're not in the World of Warcraft ecosystem now, then you're probably going to really struggle to join it. As you say, a lot of modern practices to gaming has just changed since the kind of mid-2000s, and I don't know, I think, the expensive subscription model was kind of, I think, probably had its day to a degree. I know it's still popular in a lot of places. I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but I think of a lot of the majority of the gaming populace now, I think, wouldn't necessarily jump to paying, as you say, like $40, $50 a month subscription services on top of every other payment you have to make, so...
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Okay, well, that kind of wraps up a few things. Just got a couple of last ones. Luke, have you heard of Valheim? Have you played it at all on PC?
I've heard of it. I think it's is that the kind of it's the Viking Nordic-esque survival game, isn't it?
Yeah, apparently it's blowing up. It's had 4 million users now. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is blowing up. I saw some gameplay for it. I didn't think it was my sort of thing, apart from the setting, which I love, but I don't really like the survival crafting type games. I think anything that reminds me of Ark just gives me heebie-jeebies. So and it reminded me of that, but in a cool Nordic setting. But it's really interesting to see these games that just kind of like you wouldn't expect this game to blow up, and yet it has. So great for the developers. I think it's fantastic. Anytime anything like this happens.
Oh, that's cool. And just one last one. Apparently, we might be getting some more Elden Ring news in March. Are we all stoked for Elden Ring? Do we actually believe it exists?
I cannot wait. Give me anything on that game. Any smidgen of information. I just need it.
Excellent. Zemi?
I don't even know if it's scary. Is it scary?
No, it's not scary. No, I don't believe so.
I definitely need to look more into it, as you can tell.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And Pucks? We've been after some more Elden Ring news for a long time, haven't we?
I mean, I'm kind of on Zemi on this one. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I don't really know what it is, so I struggle to say that I am excited for it because it's still, at least for me, it's still a bit of a massive mystery. So I don't know, but I would like to comment on Valheim actually, because a close friend of mine and myself, we kind of jumped on it when it launched, or alpha, whatever it was, and we've been having an absolute blast of this game. But as Luke was saying, I'm not really into the survival genre much either. But it's the way that the Valheim is done. It's really grabbed the pair of us that played together to the point of like I'm not, I've never been into like Minecraft or any of those kind of games, but like the building mechanics in this one I've really enjoyed. And as you say, 17 plus. Was it 4 million odd copies in about 17 days? I thought was like astounding. And I think what I found more astounding is that I think the game, from what I've read, was primarily a solo effort. I think the team consists of less than 5 people, I believe, at least for the original people, the group that made it. So knowing that as well, I find 4 million plus copies in less than a month for what is effectively probably your first big title, I think it's absolutely insane. And congrats to the small team. They must be absolutely laughing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, congrats to them. Fantastic. Yeah, exactly. But fair enough, Aaron Greenberg has literally tweeted within the last hour: Elden Ring new trailer, likely to be showcased on March 23rd. That was the original tweet from DualShockers. Sorry, Aaron Greenberg's just come back saying, just to set expectations, this is not happening. There are always things we have in the works, but nothing coming soon that would feature game announcements or world premieres like this. So there we go. Correction while we're online.
So no Elden Ring news for even longer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I say, there are people that are starting to doubt whether this game actually exists. So it'll be interesting to see.
We'll see, yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, gents. We've covered quite a few topics tonight. I know not all of them huge bangers. We're still waiting for Microsoft to drop the bomb of some fantastic, huge news and stuff. But gaming news nonetheless. And like I say, Sony have had the sort of the time in the spotlight this week, which is pretty cool to see. So excellent. Well, thank you very much, chat. You've been fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Nice to see Fugly back in the chat. He's been, like I say, MIA for a while. He's been lost in the Elder Scrolls Online universe, but seems like he's back with us now, so that's fantastic. Let's just do a quick round. Luke, thank you very much for being here, my friend. Obviously, people will be able to see you play Halo next Saturday at 8 p.m. UK time.
Yes, hopefully well. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I'll have to get some extra practice in before then with the team, and hopefully we can. To be honest, if we can make it out of the first round, I'll be pretty happy about that. So
I would be amazed if I'm honest, not because of your performance, but because of mine. There you go.
But yeah, it'll be interesting, and thank you for having me on. It's always great and great topics, great chat as usual. So thank you very much.
No problem. You're one of our multi-format guests. You cover them all, so it's fantastic. No, thank you for being here. Zemi, again, always a pleasure, my friend. Like I say, second time on the show. We did try getting you on earlier, but like you say, for other reasons that didn't happen. But great to have you back. So thank you for being here, my friend. Where can we find you?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, dude, it's a pleasure being on here. Hopefully, I won't take as long of a hiatus to get back on your show. It's always
Excellent.
fun to be on your show, man. I love how you set up the topics and everything. It's a lot of fun, man. But if you guys want to find me, the main thing that I'm doing anymore right now, at least, is I'm currently working on building up a website called constantgamer.com. It is basically a gaming news website, like Kotaku, like IGN, like all those big ones. The real thing that separates us, though, is that we do try to stay absolutely objective with our reporting of gaming news and reviews and all of that type of stuff, right? We really like to separate, facts from opinion, if you will, right? So yeah, that's really, the big thing is just, keeping everything real, not, super speculating on everything. And if we do, it's always separated by what we actually know and what actually happened. And then in addition to, gaming news, reviews, and featured articles, we also have a community section where we're posting fun quizzes on, and more is coming to that section. I usually try to mention this on every podcast that I'm on. If you are someone that would be interested in writing for a gaming news site, we are still looking for writers that would be interested in that. All you got to do is go to constantgamer.com, click on where it says contact, then click on the button that says join the team, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, man, thanks for giving me the invite to the show, and hopefully I can hop back on here sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for being in. Yeah, we'll put a link to that to your website in the description below. So fantastic! Definitely check that out. Puxley, thank you for being here, my friend.
Of course, I always love I love doing this. I love talking games with all of the guests and yourself that we have on. I know we're Xbox centric, but I love that we do cover other stuff. As much as we love Xbox, especially myself, also I really love PlayStation and Nintendo. So I love that we can talk about all these different things and not always be just Xbox. That's been really good fun.
No, exactly. And appreciate you being here. And like you say, yeah, it is great talking about other stuff. I love talking about Xbox things, but the gaming sphere in general, it's great to see what's going on there. And to be honest, Xbox wouldn't be where they are right now without the healthy competition that exists out there. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, so before I do go, sorry, just to quickly add that for those who may not have seen last week, we do actually now have a Discord server up and running. And you should find a link for that in the description below. If it's not there now, it'll be there once we're done with this show. So if you're interested in joining our Discord, by all means, please click the link as and when it is there, and we'll all get chatting and help us build the community on there. So look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, no, the link should be down below. So great to see you in our chat if you want to make it, guys. And this time next week, we'll either be patting ourselves on the back or commiserating ourselves with our awesome victory or our total defeat. One of the other. So
looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Tune in next week to find out. Like I say, we'll be live streamed on Discord if you want to watch it live. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we might come out victorious, but we'll never know. Thank you very much for watching. We'll do it again next week, and we'll see you then. Take care.